All right, we are live. It's not showing up on YouTube yet. I'll just take a few seconds.
Oh, I'm just going to change Keenan onto my phone, 4G.
Oh, okay, you can come back.
Oh, I'm just going to change Keenan onto my phone.
Okay, we are live. All right. You guys hear me all right?
Yeah.
Cool. Everything was just quiet there for a second. I thought I lost all the audio. All right, looks like we have a few people coming in. Hey everyone, how you doing? Good to see you. Oh, hold on. Oh, you came in on a different channel there, Andrew. You have a frozen version of you.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, you got me?
Yeah. Oh, that's way better.
Yeah, that's good quality.
Yeah, you look a lot better.
On 4G now. My Wi-Fi is not so good.
Hey, Mark, how you doing? Welcome, Mark.
Hi, Mark. Morning or afternoon. It's just turned afternoon.
Hey, Mark, how you doing?
Hi, Limelight Creative.
Hey, guys.
Thanks for joining us. Morning or afternoon. It's just turned afternoon.
Hey, Mark. Hey, Andrew, Heather, Emma. If any of you guys have the YouTube live open on a different tab, you'll just need to mute it so it doesn't echo through.
Yeah, on.
No.
All right. Yeah, I think we should be good now.
Cool. Okay, do you want to share my screen,
Cool.
Keenan?
Yeah, if you want to add it on there, I think you need to add it back again since you're
2
coming through your
seconds.
phone.
Okay. Okay, that's done.
There we go. Boom.
Great. Well, thanks everyone. Welcome to using social listening to safeguard your brand. A little bit of an intro, I suppose. I'm Andrew Dobbie. I'm the founder of MadeBrave. If you don't know who MadeBrave are, we are a creative brand agency. We're based out of Glasgow in Scotland. We generally do branding and a whole lot of other related services for some of the biggest brands all around the world. These are just some of the ones that we work with. We are usually in this studio in the East End of Glasgow. However, obviously today we're not, and we're in our home, so we're missing that very much. This is the MadeBrave team. If you've not come across us, go check out our social channels. You'll find us pretty much on most channels under the username MadeBrave. We often share a lot of knowledge on branding and marketing and all sorts of related services again. So you can find a lot of that on there or on our blog, which is just madebrave.com. And obviously as well, we like to have a little bit of fun on social media as well, so you maybe get entertained along the way. So as I said, I'm the founder of MadeBrave. We've also got today on this session, we've got Keenan Irwin, who's our brand manager at MadeBrave. And we have Emma Blair, who is our head of marketing, and Heather Robertson is one of our marketing execs in the marketing team. So in this session today, I'm going to be talking you through branding, a little bit about what it is, why it's important, and especially sort of in light of COVID at the moment. A couple of examples of brands that have adapted well. Keenan's going to jump in and support at that point. And then we've got some takeaways for your brand. And then Heather and Emma here are going to talk about some social listening, what it is, what it's for, and why it's important more than ever right now. And we're going to talk through some free and paid tools and let you know some of the differences. So we'll also have some time for a Q&A at the end. So remember, if you have any questions about anything relating to what you think we might be able to help with, pop them in there. We'll try our best to answer them. If we can't answer them, we'll tell you we can't answer them. And if we can signpost you somewhere, we'll also try and do that as well. So it's obviously a very challenging time for us all at the moment. And I think the one thing that unites us all is that we're all having to go through some sort of challenge or other. Our business is facing challenges as well, and we've had projects cancelled or delayed, or and so like everyone's having to adapt. And I just want to first of all let you know, if you're listening, that that everyone is struggling or challenging in some way or another. So if you're going through anything, remember to try and reach out to someone. You can reach out to our team. If we can help you in any way, we will do as well. So and a lot of you may have had work stop overnight. Or your business model has maybe turned upside down. And of course, it's obviously a real worry. And at the moment, a lot of businesses have also had their market or their business completely closed at the moment, and it's not possible to make any sales. So rather than doing nothing, which can often be the easy thing to think about doing, and going silent as a brand or a business, we kind of think it's best not to do that in this moment, because at some point, but the world will kick back into action, and businesses will come back and the markets will come back. And if you've got that extra bit of time at the moment, or you're in a fortunate position where you still can't offer services or products, you kind of really want to make sure you're front of mind for people that are buying, or that when people do start to buy again, that you're going to be front of mind again at that point. So so now is perhaps a good time to focus on your brand. And I thought maybe what we could do here is kind of looking at, first of all, a couple of definitions of brand, just to get us all on the same page. So Richard Branson, he talks about your brand being your name or your reputation. We've got Wally Ollins, who's a very famous designer, says a brand is simply an organization or a product or a service with a personality. We've got Marty Newmeyer, who we interviewed recently on our Just a Chat With Branding Creativity podcast that you might want to check out. He says that brand is a person's gut feeling about a product or service or organization. And then we've got Jeff Bezos, who says it's what other people say about you when you're not in the room, right? And at MadeBrave, we often like to talk about it, that branding is the thing that humanizes your business so that people can connect with your business the way they would a friend, right? Now, that sounds a bit strange, but I'll explain in a minute. Now, often, we tell businesses that, you should spend usually about 60% of your focus on building your brand, and then 40% of your time or effort or money on activating that brand. Now, at the moment, obviously, we a lot of us can't activate, and we can't do sales, and we can't do this kind of thing. So, maybe that percentage changes at the moment, and we're spending much more time on building our brand and showing what that means. So, this is often a good slide. Feel free to take screenshots, of this as well, because it's quite a good thing to have and to kind of reference back on at any point. But we often talk about brand as a person, and it's quite a nice way to think about things. So, if you think about your brand or your business as a person right now, beyond making money, now we know we have to make money, right, to feed ourselves, to feed our families, to keep a roof over our head. But beyond that, a person needs a purpose, a why, a reason to get out of bed, right? So purpose is hugely important for a business. And we believe at MadeBrave that purpose-driven brands are especially generally more successful in the marketplace. If you're growing a business or a team or anything, you have to have a vision. So you have to tell people where you're taking them and where you're going. However, to not come across as crazy, we also need to have goals, right? So humans are goal-orientated organisms, so we need goals to get there, right? And then we need values. So as a business, when you're trying to attract a tribe to your business, or we can't get everyone to be a customer of ours, so we want to attract people that have the same values, because if they have the same values as us, we're going to be able to speak to them, we're going to understand them, and we're going to be able to build a relationship with them. Of course, we have, as a person, you have a personality, and a brand does that as well. So we need to understand what our personality is. And then we also have a tone of voice, and we change our tone of voice depending on the situation we're in. So, especially more than ever, tone of voice is very important at the moment. We have a brand promise, an emotional connection, a commitment to our customers no matter what. We have an onlyness, so something that we only do as a business that no one else does, that makes us stand out. We've got to have some sort of benefit that we bring to the world, and that's really important, obviously. And then how do we differentiate? That's your proposition. It's also very important to tell your story and to understand your story, so that others can follow along and listen. And especially in social media, that's, you know, it's a big part of social media, is that we all want to follow other narratives and stories. As human beings, we love stories. You know, if you weren't watching us right now, you'd be off watching something on Amazon Prime or Netflix or somewhere else. And we have a visual style as a brand, and you know, and often people get stuck thinking that brand is just that identity part. It's just the visual part. But you know, as you can see, there's so much more that makes this up. Also, you know, who we hang out with, the suppliers, the people we engage with, where we hang out, and then the brand home, the website, the office, whatever that may be. And last of all, the logo or the name is like a human's face. It reminds us of all these other interactions that we've had with someone. So today, you know, and in today's world right now, you know, it's very important. You know, I believe that purpose and values are very important to kind of branding right now. And you know, if you're sitting there and you're thinking, well, I don't know what my brand purpose is, I don't know, I don't really know what it means. I mean, we could do a complete session on this, and it may be that we do that. But if you check out Simon Sinek, follow him on LinkedIn. He's got a TED Talk called Start With Why. He also sells this book. It's a really good way of kind of understanding what purpose is in a business and a brand. And, you know, he's got a lot of tools to help you define what yours is. But also, you know, in terms of, you know, values, just to click back there, you know, as I say, like that, this is a time where we, you know, if you have values in your business, that you should be activating them, and your purpose, and making sure they're actually true, and not just things that are on a PDF on your computer. So we've got a couple of examples here at the moment, just to kind of talk you through some brands that have, you know, shown that they've activated the purpose, that they've shown that they're living by their values. Keenan's going to jump in just to support at this point, so I'll pop you onto the first one.
Hey guys. So yeah, just a few examples, just for some brands that have, you know, they're not scrambling to find their purpose. They already knew what it was. And that's kind of my first point, is just that they were able to react immediately. So this first one is from Boots. You know, so they kind of stepped up to kind of help the NHS initially, just to help give practical advice on some things around COVID, you know, and then just, you know, answering some FAQs. You know, a lot of people are confused about, you know, is this my allergies happening right now? Is this COVID? What's going on? So they put a little bit in there to kind of help people answer questions, or, you know, to find that out for themselves. And so, but it kind of fits around their purpose of just being there when you need them. They're just kind of always there. So that's really great. Marks and Spencer, as well. They did this "Can I Freeze It" campaign. So they put out a few posts around, you know, like, well, you guys may not know, like, you can freeze cheese. Apparently, you can freeze.
I don't believe it.
Freeze eggs. I would never think to try that, and that's really useful information. But there was some negative sentiment around it as well, just around hoarding. If you can imagine, I don't know what it was like the last time all of you went to the store. The last time I was there, there's still, you know, not a lot of milk, not a lot of toilet paper, just kind of all the essentials are missing. And so there was quite a mixed bag of, wow, thank you so much. This is so helpful. I would never have known. All my food would have spoiled if I didn't know this. And then plenty of other people on the other end of the pendulum going, I can't believe you guys are doing this. You're going to make the situation even worse. So, you know, I would say, like, you know, should they be, for them, they're probably asking themselves, should we be creating more content like this? It's a great question. You know, with hundreds and hundreds of comments coming through, you know, it can be difficult to know if you're not using social listening, but we'll get onto that in a minute. Another one is Patagonia. So they were one of the very first to just kind of close down everything. They closed all of their retail stores. They closed their offices. They closed a lot of their operations. This was nearly a month ago, before everyone else, and just said, you know, our people just mean too much to us. They're too important to us. We're just not even going to risk it. So again, going back to brand purpose, I don't think they would have been able to make that decision that quickly if they didn't have that aligned already, if they weren't all in agreement. So that's where it's really, really crucial. It sounds like, for MadeBrave, Andrew said, we want to inspire creativity in everyone. So that's something that always allows us to kind of point back to and go, okay, why are we doing this? It's not always for making money, although of course we're a business, so we need to do that. But it's about that deeper purpose. We want to be creative. We want to show how we can be creative. We want to get others involved in the community, and so that makes a lot of decisions maybe not easy, but it makes them easier, and then makes them quicker to make. And then this last one is from Nike. And it's just a great play on words. If you ever dreamed of playing for millions around the world, now is your chance. Play inside, play for the world. So like I said, it's a great play on words, and it kind of fits into their purpose again of just, being that better you, being faster, being stronger, and kind of like this united world, all of us just kind of uniting together. So yeah. So there's a few examples for you. There are tons of other brands that are doing this really, really well, just reinforcing and demonstrating what their purpose is, and I think just further aligning their customer base. Probably having just that deeper sense of belonging with that brand, and of course you also have other brands that have kind of missed the mark and maybe alienated themselves a little bit. But anyway, I just want to, I'll pass you back to Andrew. He's just going to give you some practical tips and some takeaways for this branding piece.
Thanks, Keenan. That was fantastic. Yeah, and I think to Keenan's point is that, branding is not just about the stuff that's on the front, the stuff that people see on website, on social media. If you're a brand that talks about caring for people and, looking after your team, this is the time to prove it and show it. And I think there's a lot of brands that are getting unearthed for, maybe how they've handled situations, maybe incorrectly, or and it's obviously a challenge because, everyone's under high stress. No one's ever been through, maybe this situation before, but it's a real chance to show your authentic values and what that means, and bring your culture to life. And show people, kind of what you're made of almost. So, some practical tips for you guys right now, if you're thinking about your business and what to do. Listening before you start to make actions. If you've got ideas, ask on social first, would this be handy, rather than spending loads of time going building things or doing things that might not be needed. Listen first, and and this obviously ties into the social listening that we'll talk about just after my section. But before giving people something or trying to sell them something new, if you are in that hard position just now where you're having to pivot and change what you do, the services that you offer, don't do all the loads of work before phoning someone. Like, I always say, it's easier just pick up the phone, speak to someone that that might buy that from you, and ask them, would this be helpful? And then if they say yes, then you've kind of you've saved yourself some time. Be sensitive and empathetic to people. This is hopefully an obvious one, but I see a lot of businesses and stuff on TV, and the ad, they're still just putting ads out that have obviously been created 6 months previous or what. And I understand some of that stuff will have been booked in and and whatnot, but I think a key tip is not just to leave every ad that you already had running. So if you had Facebook ads, LinkedIn ads, whatever, display ads running, go back and check them now. Make sure the tone is correct. Make sure that copy or the, any images that you use are appropriate for the world just now. It might be quite easy while you're sort of your mind is distracted with everything else to just let that stuff run, but go check it, make sure if it's relevant and adapt it or turn it off if required as well. And a good check as well is if you're putting anything out from your brand, try and get someone else to check it for you. Don't just put stuff out, because we're all in kind of different emotional states right now, depending on what's happening in our families and our businesses and such like. So if you've got people around you, try and sense check stuff, and get a second opinion on things. Be transparent. I think people appreciate that. People are savvy these days. They understand and they want to see right through a business. They don't just look at the product you sell. It's often actually not about the product you sell. It's about what you believe in or how you act and behave. Patagonia is a great example of that. They constantly look after their people, they look after the world and the actions that they take, and they'll often do things that will have an effect on profit for them, but that creates even bigger tribe because they're showing what they believe in. So I think people trust people that are honest. So if your business is struggling, let people know. Say, and you might find that people will help you. As a point, one side of our business, we do a lot of film production. We've got, all that film production stops. So, if we tell people the film production stop, but we can do other things like motion graphics or whatever as well, then, they may be empathetic to us and then understand where we are as a position. If you just go silent and you let your business kind of disappear overnight, then you're not giving yourself the best chance. So and I know that's hard because when you're vulnerable and things are difficult, it's not easy to find that voice. But if you can do it, I think reach out. And if you don't want to do it publicly on social media, reach out to those people around you as well. And there's lots of people. And if you're in it, struggling at any point, make sure you ask for help. Adapt your strategy. So that's kind of, I suppose, ties in with the point a few pages ago. But I suppose, a lot of people, you might have done an away day as a business. You might have spent weeks and weeks creating a new marketing strategy for 2020 and what that looks like. And that unfortunately, that strategy is most likely, null and void now. And again, that's hard because, you've most likely put a lot of emotional and time and effort and money into that. But I think, any strategy that you created previous to 3 weeks ago from now, you need to revisit and you need to create a new one. And you almost need to address it every day. I know myself and Keenan here. So Keenan, obviously the brand manager at MadeBrave, and we work together on a lot of MadeBrave's marketing and, how we speak to the world. And, we're having to change our strategy daily, depending on what happens in the world, what happens in the news. And just, I suppose, you've just got to, just make sure you're not sticking to something that you did a while ago just because you did it. And then lastly, the activate your purpose. This is the time to activate that purpose and values. So this is a time to prove to the world that they are not just words on a PDF on a server that you created at one point. And don't be afraid that if you feel, oh God, that my purpose doesn't feel right now, to create a new one. I've seen quite a few brands completely changing and finding their purpose, which is actually really cool. It's people are finding what they're put on earth to do and what positive impact they can give to their community, to the people around them. As Keenan said, our purpose at MadeBrave that we collectively came to is to inspire creativity in everyone. So we always say, look, if we're doing our job, our hope is that in this session right now, we've inspired some sort of creative spark in one of your heads, and that sets you off in a direction to go and do something amazing or different. And every time I get up to do speaking or do anything, we just our job is to inspire creativity, and that feels right to me just now. It feels alive in me right now more than ever, to be honest. And we took that as our brand, and we reached out and created a support group on LinkedIn for which over 3,000 people have now joined that supports the creative industry. If you want to check that out, if you are in the creative industry, it is Creative Industry COVID Support Group, and in that group we are sharing all sorts of help, advice, and you can get one-to-one support if you're struggling at all at the moment. You can also find lots of links to grants and loans that are available in the marketplace. But it's also figure out what your purpose is and how would you activate that. So and then again, to repeat that again, the values, show what they are. Some of our values at MadeBrave are to infinity and beyond. We've got amigos without egos, and that's all about, individually we're great, but as a team we're way stronger. So right now it's really, you have to show that, and you have to look after your team. You have to work together as a team, and you have to make sure these things are in check. So I think we'll most likely do a webinar over the coming weeks or days and on values specifically. I think there's quite a lot to talk about, and that we can go into in company culture and which is obviously very important right now when we're all kind of sitting in different rooms as well. So maybe some practical tips to keep that stuff alive. But yeah, hopefully you got something out of that from me. I'm going to pass you on to Heather and Emma, and they're going to talk a lot about social listening. So it might not be a term that you've heard, So hopefully they're going to sort of demystify it for you a little bit and let you know why it's very important at the moment. Thanks.
Sure thing. So hi everyone. So Heather and I are going to chat through some social listening and how that's really relevant to everything that Andrew's just said and your brand today. So as we know, and we're very aware of, the situation has been changing during COVID-19 on an almost daily basis. And I think everybody across the country has experienced what has been a bit of an emotional workout to varying degrees. We've gone through everything from sort of disbelief to maybe defeat, to sadness, in some cases hostility, in other cases being quite overwhelmed and moved, I think, by the acts of kindness and compassion and generosity that we're kind of seeing from our fellow humans. But all of that has also been underpinned by this thread of ongoing uncertainty. We just don't know what next week or possibly even tomorrow is going to look like. And more than ever, we are taking to social media to keep in touch with our friends and our family and brands we like as well, so that we can stay in touch at a time where social distancing is keeping us physically apart. And we can see that when we look at the latest data on it. Depending on the channel, we've seen social media usage increase anywhere from between 20 and 40%. So this is a space that we're all in just now during COVID-19. So with that in mind, it's really important that, first of all, to reiterate what Andrew said earlier, we recommend that brands are still active on social media and online. They still have a voice. It's not the time to go dark. But crucially, in line with that, it's so vital that we're in tune with the conversation that's happening and the feeling that's happening as well. And this is where social listening really, really comes in for us. So social listening allows us to, there are various tools you can get, and what it does is allows us to conduct a search and aggregate conversations that are happening across multiple social media channels into the one place around a specific brand or a specific topic. And having all this information on one dashboard makes it really easy to suss out the lay of the land. So it helps us answer questions that are otherwise really difficult or in some cases impossible to answer. So things like, what's the volume of conversation around your brand? Are a lot of people still talking about it, or is it really dying down, which might indicate that we want to do a bit more activity, for example. Also looking at what people are saying about it. Is it good? Is it bad? Are they championing your brand? Are they challenging it? And I think Keenan's example of M&S is really in line with that, and how kind of polarised opinions can be in some cases, so being aware of that is so important. But it's also looking at what are people saying at a broader industry level. I think the retail sector is quite an interesting one to look at just now. A lot of FMCGs are relying a wee bit more heavily on price promotions just now to keep their sales going. And on one hand, you've got people who are sort of rejoicing at these kind of bargains they can get during COVID-19. But on the other hand, we've got people asking quite valid and serious questions around, well, how are you making sure that your warehouse staff are protected and your delivery drivers are all protected as well? So these are all the conversations that are really happening quite prominently online. Another thing as well that social listening is really good for is just seeing how our brand is comparing against other competitors in the space as well, and understanding what the volume of conversation is, what activity they're doing as well. So it gets us some really, really valuable insight, especially during this time. So for us, social listening is an activity that we do really regularly. It's definitely a hygiene piece that we do either monthly or quarterly, but given the circumstances just now, it's something that we're recommending doing on a daily basis. So when you get into work or whatever your office now is, it's a case of kind of checking the news, checking social media and doing some social listening to make sure that we're best prepared for the day ahead. Because as Andrew said, I think that adapting the strategy piece becomes really, really important now, especially on social media. You might have this brand content plan that you've been working on, and it might have some absolute gems of content in it, but more than ever, we need to question, is this really the right day for it? Is it the right time? Because with social listening, the insights we can get from that mean that we can sort of be quite agile and change our strategy on a daily basis as we need to. So Heather is going to chat in a wee bit more detail around the key metrics that we look at for social listening, a couple of tools that we use, and there's also some freebie tools in there which can be really handy as well.
Sure, thanks Emma. Okay, so yeah, lots of really valid points there from Andrew and Emma and Keenan about COVID-19 and how that has impacted every industry imaginable. So like the past few weeks has been so fast paced, it's really difficult for brands to keep their fingers on the pulse. And as we've said already, a strategy that was made even a month ago might be completely invalid now. So this is where social listening is really great for quick wins. It just helps you to get a little bit of insight about what people are saying about your brand and any ways that you can amend what you're doing to fit the current situation. So what we use social listening for is to track and measure overall brand health. It's really just about seeing how you think you should be performing relative to your brand purpose and your values. Are people saying the things that you want them to say when you hone in on those purpose and values? You can use that to inform your strategic brand decisions. And that's not just necessarily at a marketing level, but also perhaps a product or service level. You might want to make some changes based on what you see, based on the themes that come up during conversations. And you can use that to improve your customer and overall brand experience. And with that, you can create content that your audience is really craving. That might not necessarily just be your core audience, but you can also find audiences that you didn't necessarily know that you have that are accessible on social media. And you know, now is the time for unity. Lots of brands are working really well together. They would usually be competing, but it's just about working for the greater good. So this is where you can have a look at what your audience is saying and think, well, maybe I could work with that competitor and we could develop a particular service that will benefit those people. And that obviously helps to generate ideas for marketing campaigns as well, both in the reactive term, short term and long term. So with our clients, as Emma said, we do regular social listening quarterly, monthly, or even weekly. The more regular you do your social listening, the more agility you have and the more availability you have for reactive content. So although quarterly is amazing because you can see a really good overview of your performance, the weekly piece has a lot of value as well because you could change your strategy for next week, for example, based on what you find for this week. We'll quite often do some ad hoc social listening pieces as well. For example, we had a brand that had a product recall last year. So I was checking in every day and just providing reports around social conversations just to see if anything blew up, if it was picked up by the news, things like that. So there's lots of ways that you can use social listening for your benefit. So I'll just take you through the key metrics that we think have the most value for social listening. The first one is brand sentiment, which provides an indication of how people feel about your brand in a really nice, concise snapshot way. So there's positive, negative, and neutral. Generally, we, as a benchmark, look for 25% positive, 25% neutral is generally okay. Negative is generally okay, and then the rest to be neutral. So when we see this, I like to provide this relative to the previous period, so the previous quarter in this example. So if I was looking at this, I would say, well, the negative sentiment has gone up by a fair chunk and it looks like that's been removed from the positive. So what has gone on there in the last quarter? And that's where I'll dig into that a little bit to see if I can find the moments that kind of cause that negative sentiment. So we'll provide a snapshot of that. And then, that's on that. There we go. The next piece that we look at is conversation volume over time. So this shows trends in the volume of social media mentions around your brand, which we correlate with specific events or topics. So with our clients, I'll dig in and just look at the nature of the conversation where there are peaks in particular. We'll provide the previous period data for comparison as well. So with this one, we can see that there's like lots of peaks and troughs, and there's a number that I've like gone in and just seen, like there's a product recall in there, there's market reports, there's a new partnership announcement that led to a lot of conversation volume. And then what I take after that is I'll have a look at the same period of time. And that means that I can have a look at where the negative sentiment happened, depending on what the conversation volume was. So if we look at this previous one, we've got 2 peaks just around about November there that says market reports and product recall. So that's me looking at the conversation volume on a daily basis. And then here I'm looking at it at a weekly basis. So I can see that in the same market reports and the product recall happened, there was a massive increase in negative sentiment, and that was due to the product recall and negative conversation volume around that, and then just a little bit of positive sentiment around the market reports. So that's just a really good example of saying that conversation volume is great, shows you where the peaks are, but it doesn't necessarily tell you the whole story, because just because you have high conversation volume doesn't necessarily mean that the conversations are positive, as we can see here. So one thing that we find really useful when we're doing social listening is to benchmark against the competitor set. So when we're working with our clients, we'll establish really early on what the main competitors are that they want to compare themselves against. So we can see here that we'll use that with conversation volume over time, which is what we looked at previously, but also share of conversation. So we can see here that competitor 1 and competitor 2 have a really high share of conversation volume relative to brand X, which is one of our clients. So we can see that it's quite low, and then competitor 4 had a really big peak there, and that's when I would kind of tap in and have a look and see what led to that. So maybe it was a product, a new product announcement or a partnership, and it's just about kind of keeping tabs on your competitors and making sure that that you know what's going on in your competitor set. The topic themes are a really useful one as well. You can use topic themes for a number of ways. You can have a look at it and see what the topic themes are around your brand. So are there particular keywords that are being used alongside it, or are you going to find particular hashtags? But in this example I've provided, it's an example of what you could do as a brand when you're deciding to do a reactive piece of content. So World Health Day was on Wednesday. And perhaps you're thinking, I would quite like to do a post about World Health Day, maybe just a reactive image, or like something that I can do that shows that I'm in support. So you could do a bit of a social listening piece around World Health Day, and I've honed this in to show the UK themes for World Health Day. So of course, there's a lot about frontline and nurses, like hashtag thank you, of course, because like clap for the NHS is so relevant right now, clap for carers. So you could have a look at this and think, okay, this is kind of what I'm thinking in terms of the content that I'm going to put out. Even you can use that to amend your strategy. Maybe you're going to do something different, like PPE is obviously a strong trend there. So maybe you have a factory or something that you might have materials left over that you can make PPE and give that out for free, or you've got a competitor that you could work with really closely to develop that offering. So there's just lots of different ways that you can use topic themes. I think that it has a lot of value, particularly the hashtag thing, because you can use that to see what your audience is saying, and you can also use that to tap into an extended audience that you maybe didn't necessarily know that you had. So you can, for example, if you have, we've got a client that works with people that have diabetes. So we found it to be really, really useful to tap into hashtags that we didn't know existed or would have struggled to find. So next I'm going to go into looking at tools. But before I do that, I just want to emphasize the importance of methodology when you're doing your social listening. It's really important to define this really closely in a solid way before you start at the very beginning. So with our clients, we work really closely in collaboration with them to define the objectives. You know, what do they want to get out of social listening? The most relevant competitor set for them, any locations that they want to focus on, or languages. We use Boolean search to create a custom algorithm, and that's used consistently over reporting periods. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Boolean, but it's the one with the brackets and the quotation marks, and there's lots of different options you could do. It's like a type of code, and it's great because it allows flexibility for example, if you have a brand that has a generic name, for example, Sky. If you put Sky in, you have a massive amount of irrelevant results, but you could put Sky and then near and have that within, put Sky Television within 7 words appearing within the brand name. And that means that you're getting rid of lots of irrelevant results. You can also, if you tend to find a result pops up and it's got a keyword in it that you definitely would never use, you can make that a not term within the Boolean search. So that's really handy. And it's great because you can allow that, you can apply that consistently over reporting periods. And it's really important to use the same methodology across reporting because it allows you to compare apples with apples. There's not much point in making changes every time because it dilutes the learnings that you can take. So looking at some social listening tools, I've got some premium ones and some free ones. This is definitely not an exhaustive list. There are loads and loads of tools out there that you can use. But the main difference between paid and free is the analytical elements. So the paid ones, you're usually able to track sentiment through paid tools. You'll be able to visualize conversation volume and tap into those and see what's going on, as well as identifying key that I've just explained through there. Sometimes the free ones as well, they're so handy, but they're not often updated to the moment, like the premium ones are. You'll be able to get things that have been posted right away through the premium ones. But the free ones will sometimes update every 15 minutes or every hour, things like that. Premium tools, they often tend to offer low, mid and high range packages with like different levels of benefits, so lots to offer to different size businesses as well. So I'll just quickly run through these. So Meltwater, you can use Boolean search terms to hone down to the most important results. They've got great sentiment analysis that's easily tweaked. For example, I quite often have to go through and tweak sentiment, particularly if I'm looking at the UK or Scotland, a Scottish brand, because of how sarcastic we are as a culture. And that quite often comes up as negative sentiment, but really we're saying that we really enjoy a product. Like if, I don't know, if we say that a product is really sick or something, that would flag as negative, but it's actually, we're saying that we really like that product. So that's a really important thing to do at the very early stages, is go through and tweak everything. It also, Meltwater looks at blogs and news sites, and you can find key influencers as well. You can see who your top posters are relevant to your brand. So that's really super handy, and you can set up weekly digests as well to be emailed to you. Brand24 provides mentions in a feed in real time. Again, influencers in particular, both at a personal brand level for if you're looking to find influencers to work with, but also if you're an influencer yourself, because it provides, it kind of scores influencers to see what it thinks would be most relevant for you. And that also includes sentiment analysis like Meltwater. There's Sprout Social. It's actually part of the social listening is part of the overall service, the CRM service that Sprout Social provides. So if you're already a customer of Sprout Social, you could maybe have a look and see if they can offer you social listening as well. It uses Boolean too, so another really great way to search. And then there's Awario as well. It crawls through over 13 billion web pages daily. That's one of their big things that they like to say. You can set up alerts and sort mentions by sentiment, and also it's quite useful to identify your top influencers too. So the free tools as well, there's lots that you can do with that. Google offers some great things. So there's Google Alerts. You can use Google Alerts to send you information to your inbox every day to see where your brand's been mentioned. And you can do that for competitors as well. So you can kind of keep tabs on them and see what they're doing. And they have trends as well, Google Trends, which is really handy because you can see where people have been searching for you. Maybe there's a way, if there's the same pattern every year, you might be able to act ahead of a spike, for example, the following year. TweetDeck is really good. Of course, it's only for Twitter, but that is where a lot of social conversation happens around your customers and within industries. So you can create customized interfaces to monitor different users, different hashtags, search terms, and lists as well. That's actually quite a useful one if you're representing your brand at an event, because you can see what other brands that are there are saying about the event, monitor use of the hashtag if there's a particular hashtag, and get involved in conversations that you wouldn't normally have spotted before. Hootsuite, that's a similar one to TweetDeck, but it's for all social networks. And that's free for individuals' accounts, but not for business level accounts. You would need to explore a payment for that. And then last but not least, it's really important to track your hashtags that you're using. So I've put in Hashtagify here. So that offers free hashtag tracking from Twitter. Only Twitter is free. If you want to do it with Instagram, you have to pay. But you can see how useful the hashtags you've used in your tweets are. And you can find more relevant hashtags to find the right audience. And you can also use that to find influencers that might suit your business that you might want to work with. So that is a really quick snapshot overview of social listening and how we approach social listening. I'd say if you're going to make use of the free tools, have a dig around and explore them. Really work to establish your methodology. I think that's really important. Establish your methodology, competitors, the most important search terms, and hashtags so you can track these effectively. And yeah, check in to your social listening at least monthly, if not weekly or daily, if there's something quite important happening. The more often you check it, the more reactive agility you have when it comes to your strategy or content. So
brilliant.
Brilliant.
Thanks, Heather.
Cool.
Thanks. And thanks, Emma.
Thanks.
Oh, I'm getting a weird echo. Is anyone else getting that? No, it's all right.
No.
Seems to have vanished. So yeah, I think what we'll do now is we'll jump on to a bit of Q&A. So we've got a bit of time left. So
Yeah,
if you have any questions in your head, put them into the comments at the moment. Keenan, if you maybe want to pick one out to get started.
Yeah, so here is one from Limelight Creative. I'd love your take on embarking upon branding for clients amidst this uncertainty of businesses succeeding. Tips on approaching it in a different way would be appreciated.
Okay.
So how do we? Yeah, I guess kind of how are we working with clients right now on their brand with there being so much uncertainty?
Sure. So I think the important thing right now is to make sure if you're a creative business, if you have customers, that you're speaking to them, right? So, and that's not by email, because everyone's day is, or week is changing daily. It's important to, I think, be on the phone. So that'd be my first tip to Limelight Creative, is get on the phone to your clients. You could be doing things like offering them free brainstorms. So, once you listen to them and understand what challenges they're having in their business, speak to them, ask them, can I offer some time to kind of brainstorm ideas? Can I bring in some of our team to do that? You'll be doing them a favor, and then, most likely it'll turn into hopefully, some sort of job that you can actually do, which obviously generates some income for your business as well. You can also lots of businesses now are running webinars. So if you're creative, you could be creating content for those webinars. If you can write, you could be writing summaries of those, and then creating blogs for them. You could be taking those blogs, turning them into social media posts. You could also be visualizing those kind of things. People need motion graphics at the moment, and animation and that type of services as well. So you could be looking at that. And then obviously, if you can wrap your head around social listening, you could be doing social listening for your clients right now as well. And I suppose if you're talking to customers as well, it's people, this will end at some point, and so it's kind of trying to set their businesses up for success at the moment. So if you have clients at the moment that happen to still be working and have resource to do so, perhaps you could be doing things that are useful to them that they just never seem to get time to do, and this is now the time to do it. So refreshing websites or building wikis or whatever that looks like for those businesses.
Cool. All right, we've got another one here from Faux Show Crew. I'd be interested in hearing how you guys are proactively driving in revenue during this time whilst maintaining these great brand commandments.
So I mean, is that, I suppose that's kind of the balance of how we're doing both at the same time?
That's kind of how I'm taking it.
I think,
how do we strike that balance at the moment?
Yeah, I think obviously the bigger the team you have, the easier that becomes. You know, it's harder if you are a one-man band, if you like. You know, if you're a freelancer, it's going to be a little bit more challenging to do both. However, I think you need to try and create that time to do both. Both are equally as important. You know, so yeah, for us, you know, we've got a reasonably large team, so I suppose there's some of us that are working on the revenue side of things, finding work and doing the actual work, and then there's some of us that are working more on kind of, I suppose, communicating during this time and creating content and working with those. And you know, but I suppose, you know, as an insight to my day, I'm doing a blend of all of these things. So you know, after this, I'll be going on to a client call. You know, after that, I'll then probably be prepping some more blog content or you know, or working on keying in on what our next webinar is and such like. So it's kind of, yeah, it's just, I was trying to structure a bit of everything as all you can really do just now. But remember, if you've got people around you that can support you, you know, maybe you could support a friend. Like, you know, if you're a designer and they're a copywriter, maybe they could support you and write some stuff for you, and you could be doing some artwork for them and helping each other out at the moment. So I think that's kind of back to Heather's point earlier, is that in this time it's challenging for everyone, so look around and see who you can support. So if you actually happen to have a little bit more time, can you do that to help someone else's business thrive just now, and in return, I'm pretty sure something positive will come back to you.
I can add to that from a marketing point of view as well, from the way that we're working with a lot of our clients. So we've definitely had a bigger focus on content and genuinely useful or helpful or even entertaining content, and moving away from what is potentially more of a direct response advertising approach. So with a lot of our clients as well, we've actually recommended that they stop all kind of always on or business as usual advertising, and actually return the focus onto content and showing their brand, showing their purpose, using much softer CTAs. It isn't about getting somebody to buy something right now, but by sharing something that provides some sort of light relief in terms of entertainment or humor or some sort of information. That is where the value for the audience really comes from and will drive the revenue in the long term.
Cool. Great. So then there's another one here from Barbara. This is probably a good one for you, Heather. And she's asking, what are some good ways to get started with social listening on a budget? So you mentioned some of the free tools. Like, is that, I mean, that seems kind of like an obvious place to start, but if you had a go-to, what would you start with?
I definitely think that with free tools, they're super, super helpful, but there's always an element of manual work involved. And that's where the premium tools kind of take away that manual work. But for me, my top one is actually probably Google Alerts. If you kind of set that up with to email you information based on your brand, like maybe it's come up in the news or your competitors, and it's just a case of looking through that every day. Maybe you can come up with a way to visualize it, or you're just going to store it somewhere like Google Sheets or something, if you're just going to have those links in there, and just maybe you'll be able to pick up key themes. As well as that, like Google Alerts will send you news articles, and a lot of news articles allow comments on that too. So that means that you just manually go in and have a look and just see what people are saying off the back of news articles. So I think that's a really good place to start. I think the premium tools are great. They can be quite expensive. So yeah, the free tools are, while they don't tell the whole picture and they're maybe not as concise, they're a really good idea they're a really good way to get an idea of how you're performing.
Yeah, definitely. And one way I always kind of think about them is, you know, if you're a smaller business, if it's just you, or if you're trying to convince your boss to get some social listening going, those free tools are really nice to help you just kind of dip your toe in the water and see how valuable it is for you. Just before you dive in and before you go for this big push and try to make a business case for why you should be doing it. That's just kind of gives you a really good baseline.
I completely agree. And actually, a lot of the premium tools offer free trials, and they all have like account managers that you can ask lots of questions, and they'll do a demonstration with you and things like that. So if you are going to make a business case for some social listening, then go and ask them all and really spend that time working out which one is the right one for you.
Yeah, and I think, just to reiterate, I suppose one of the points there as well is like Heather touched on Google alerts earlier. That's such a simple one that, you know, everyone should have turned on for their business. Basically, I've got alerts set up that if my name or our business is mentioned anywhere on the internet, it pings me. So every morning when I, you know, open my emails, there's stuff. I'm like, all right, we're on an article here, or we're here, and, you know, I'm not having to go and dig for that stuff. And that's completely free, really quick, set up in 2 minutes, literally, and that brings anything to you rather than you go and have to find it.
Definitely. Cool. All right. Then we got one here from Asa. Hey, Asa.
Hey, Asa.
Asa's one of my buddies. He's kind of
all of our buddies.
He's pretty cool. So Asa's asking, how is sentiment measured? Is it done manually or through the premium apps?
Generally, it is the premium apps that offer sentiment analysis. It's usually done through AI, and it's just a case of trawling through the keywords, and are they keywords that's associated with positive or associated with negative, which is why it's important to just do a bit of a sense check. As I say, like with Scottish brands, quite often Scottish people are saying that they absolutely love something, but I guess to someone else from another area of the world, they might think that we're saying that we hate it and it's horrendous. So yeah, what's quite useful about a lot of the premium tools is that when you go through and tweak everything, it's able to take on that learning and analyze what you've changed from negative to positive and vice versa. So hopefully the more you do it, the less in the long term you'll have to go in and tweak.
Cool. And then another one from Asa here. He has 2 questions. This one says, question for Heather: how can small brands without a lot of social activity use social listening to their advantage? That probably ties into that one earlier, but
so my recommendation for that would be to think about, if you're small, your objective, presumably, is to expand your audience. So find, maybe do an industry level search, or do a search based on maybe a competitor or player in your industry that you aspire to be like, and look at the keywords around there. Look at what positive things people are saying, negative things people are saying, and learnings that you can take from that. The hashtag thing is really valid there as well. If you have if you look for key themes and you find hashtags from that, you can use that hashtag as your brand and hopefully find an audience that isn't aware that you exist because if you're quite small. So I think just reframe it a little bit and have it be less about your brand performance and more about finding the audience that you want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you can maybe also use it to find relevant content that you might want to share to your customers. So if you're an expert on brand, for example, you might want to flag up or attract inbound bits of news about branding and the branding world, and obviously you could then share that content to your audience, showing them that you're ahead of the curve and always up to date with the latest information.
Yeah, it's all about keeping that finger on the pulse.
That's it.
Yep. And I would even say, I was gonna, that looks like all of our questions, but I was even gonna mention, a story that I sometimes tell to clients. I used to freelance, and I worked for a leather company. They're based in San Antonio, Texas, which is near where I was born. But they created these, they're still in business, but they make these really high-end leather bags. They also make these wallets. And I was running their social media channels, and people were this was 2015. So not that hashtags aren't relevant anymore, but it used to be back when that's when people found things, and that's how you followed things was through hashtags. And so people started posting the wallets that we made, just these little ones, with like their pocket knife and their all their little trinkets. In the States, it's quite different. I've been carrying a pocket knife since I was 10 until I moved here. And it's just, you just use it. It's amazing how often you use it for practical, non-violent things. But so people would spend like $300 on a knife, and they got their really nice wallet and their thing, and they would do this flat lay, and they were using this hashtag and they weren't tagging us in it. They were just using this, and they, but what we realized through some of the software that we were using was that people were using this hashtag over and over, and our wallet was in there every time, even if they weren't tagging us. And so what we realized was, this had been used like 10,000 times, and about, probably a quarter of those, or a third of them, all had our wallet in it. So it allowed us to do a couple of things. It allowed us to kind of shift our content strategy a little bit, and using some of their owned content that we didn't realize was there and wouldn't have known if we didn't know about that, if we hadn't been using this tool. And then actually, that allowed us to do like contests and stuff as well. And it even kind of shifted the business strategy a little bit, because we're going, okay, actually the wallet is really cheap. It's only like $20. The bags are $500, but if you can get it in their hands and show them like how high quality the material is. So, could we do something? Can we do some kind of sale here where we bring that price down? Can we do some kind of promotion where we get that into their hands? So that's kind of like an example that I just like to throw out for how social listening really can change the focus of your business, change your not just your marketing strategy, but it can change that as well. So that's not going to work for everybody. It's going to be different for everybody. But just making sure that you're paying attention. There are a lot, the internet is a really, really big place, and you're probably missing out on a good chunk if you're not using some of these tools. So.
Cool. Well, I think that's probably about time to wrap up. So thanks for taking the time out of your lunch to come hang out with us. We're going to be doing lots more of these sessions. Our next webinar is on Tuesday at 5 o'clock. That is in partnership with the Creative Entrepreneurs Club. So if you've not checked that out, creativeentrepreneurs.co.uk, creativeentrepreneursclub.co.uk, that's right, isn't it, Keenan? Is that correct? Yeah, that is basically a platform that we have set up in partnership with them to support the creative industries right now. So if you go onto that platform, you can get free one-to-one advice. So if you're struggling with anything, you can book a session with myself, Keenan, Emma's on there. I don't think, Heather, you're on there, are you?
No, not yet.
You could not yet, but you could, if you wanted to speak to Heather as well, you could do, I'm sure. And basically, we've each given some of our time weekly, so you can book a slot with me, 30 minutes with me, 30 minutes with Keenan and Emma, and a whole host of other experts. There's finance experts, there's operations experts, there's mental health experts. So don't feel intimidated by it. You just book a little slot. It's really simple, and you can come on, ask anything. If you want us to look over your CVs, your portfolios, if you have an issue in your business right now, if we can help, we will. If we can't, we'll signpost you to someone that can. There's also a job board on there. So if you're in the creative industries specifically, we're using that as a place. Any jobs that we find online, we're posting them up there. And we'd also invite you, if you know of any jobs and you see any, to please post them up as well for others. And then there's a whole host of different resources in terms of signposting to grants, loans, and help. And also, lastly, there is a section on a great charity called NABS. It's NABS. They are a charity specifically set up to support people in the creative industries with mental health and well-being. So again, to reiterate, if you're struggling right now, you can reach out to them. You can talk. They'll provide a friendly ear, and if they can help you practically, they will as well. It's a completely free service, and I can vouch for it greatly. Very, very useful. And that's for anyone, even if you run a business, if you're out of a job, if you're in a job, if you have anything that you're concerned with, give them a call. We also have another webinar on Wednesday. We're going to be doing a live stream with Dobbie over here on YouTube. Details for both of these webinars will be posted on the MadeBrave channels. So if you don't have notifications turned on, turn them on at the moment. You can turn them on YouTube. Also, if you found us via LinkedIn or Instagram, Facebook, you can check us out over there. Our handle is just simply @MadeBrave on pretty much every channel. And then we'll be doing more of these expert ones here. We're bringing experts from the MadeBrave team and bringing them onto sessions as well. So if there's any specific topics that you'd like us to cover, if there's something that we mentioned but we kind of glossed over it today, then feel free to send a DM to myself or Keenan, and we'll do our best to create a webinar around that subject for you. Thanks for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you in the next one.
Cool. Thanks, guys. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.